ending. Okay. So today is Sunday, September the 5th. September the 5th, today is Sunday. We will do a quick recap of what we learned so far. So first of all, as you know, as a database administrator, every day while you log into your computer, we need to make sure the services, the database engine must be up and running. This is the major responsibility of a DBA. Okay, so we need to make sure some items should be running. As a DBA, in our daily routine is to make sure the SQL Server services are up and running. So this is our first task to make sure. So let's do it. So we have a couple ways to do this, to make sure the services are running. We can right click on the start button, right click, go to computer management. Okay, here you will see services and applications. Click on this guy, then on this tab. Okay, let's expand the window. Okay, you will see SQL Server services, SQL Server services. So we have installed a couple times SQL Server in this machine. Yes, 3 times. One, the default instance with the default Microsoft recommended name. The second time for prod instance and QA instance. So each installation of the SQL Server is called instance. While you hear to the list to this name instance, so obviously you will just think of a SQL Server installation is called instance. Okay, so as we see here, one of the services is running. It's green. Yes, you will see a green dot here at the left hand. So it means it's running. Also, the state of this is this service is showing running. Its start mode is automatic. So we can do it right here manually. Right click. We can start prod instance. We can start the QA instance as well. But for the ease of the performance, for the better performance, we mentioned in the last session that since we are running in our home computer, so it's not recommended to turn on all the services at one time. But in your real time, in your job location, there should be all the services, all the instances must be running together at one time. Yes, so they should be all running. So now, since we are only working in one instance, so we don't need to keep all these running at one time because they occupy the space of this computer. They use the resources of this computer. Yes, so as we discussed, we are starting from dev instance, everything, because we are developing. Dev means development instance. So production should be stopped. But this is the way we can start and stop the services. So today we will show you what is more important here in this configuration manager. Yes, we talked about configuration. So what is configuration? These are the server properties. Some settings, you need to configure some settings. These are called configuration. In your mobile phone, you will see the same. You have settings, yes? On settings, you have some configurations. You have some options to turn on, turn off, some features. So here, again, in each application, you will see some configuration. So this is our SQL Server Configuration Manager. So as we will see here the instances of SQL Server installed. These are called core components of SQL Server. Later on, we will see SQL Server agent services for dev, for prod, for QA. Yes, these are components of these instances. And here, SQL Server browser. This is a shared feature. This is a shared feature. Browser, so through browser, the users can connect remotely through IP address. So if you have installed a SQL instance in one machine, so if the browser is running, you can communicate with other computers if this is on. So let's do one thing. Second thing, SQL Server network configuration. As you see here in this list, in the left hand, after SQL Server services, we see network configuration, native client, 32-bit. Yes, 32-bit. So the file that we are running, this is not the 32-bit. We will look for the 64, this one. Yes, native client protocols. So we will look for the, not the 32-bit one. We will just collapse it. And we are looking for the client protocols, network configuration for MS SQL Server, for dev, for default, for QA, and for prod. So we have some client configuration. You see shared memory, TCP, name pipe. These are all turned on. These are enabled. So sometimes the users are not able to connect through this computer remotely because the client protocols are turned off. There's no protocol between this computer and remote computers. So make sure if the TCP IP is disabled, yes, disabled here, enable and disable, you can change the properties from here. Okay, the default port number is 1433 for the SQL Server. So this should be never forgotten from the memories because the default port for the SQL Server is 1433. Okay. Then come back to network. You will see TCP IP is disabled. Yes. So we need to enable this. Yes. And apply. So while we change some settings in the network configuration, it says any changes made will be saved. However, they will not take effect until the service is stopped and restarted. It means by changing any settings here in the network configuration, we must go and restart the services from here. So we should go back here and reboot or restart this service. We have restart, pause, stop. So we must restart this service because until it's not restarted, this setting is not going to be effective, applied. So we are working with dev environment with default. So this setting belongs to this one, TCP IP. Yes, shared memory and name pipe. These are the different applications. Applications are connecting with the SQL Server through IP, through shared memory and name pipe. So shared memory is the same computer, yes. And only we need to turn on the TCP IP at this point, TCP IP. And we already know that the default port for the SQL Server is 1433. Okay, I'm not going that much deeper here. Just we need to make sure the TCP IP is turned on and the services that you're working on this should be running. That's it. Okay, close. So we just check the services should be up and running. We learned what is database. Yes. Types of database. Yes. We learned what database, types of database. So we learned like a database, it's a collection of objects, collection of tables. Yes. So collection of objects. Okay, we just checked the configuration of the SQL Server. Now we are trying to administrate the database engine through utility, which is called SSMS. So SSMS is nothing. It's only a tool. It's only a tool that enables the administrator, the DBA, to communicate with the databases, with the database engine. Yes. So here we see server type is database engine. So SQL Server has different services. SQL Server has different services. The core services, which is all the components, all the database is stored, is called database engine. Then we have analysis services, reporting services, integration services, and Azure SSIS integration runtime. So the core component is database engine. Database engine must be installed in order to make you enable to run these analysis, reports, analysis, reporting services, and integration services. So at this point, we are always checking the server type is database engine, then the server name. The server name, we must know the computer name and the IP of that machine. IP of that machine. Since we are running this server, this SQL on top of our local computer, so we can go ahead and just type a dot. Dot means default instance. Then connect. Yes, this is one way. Then also we can go to this flag, connect. So we can go to this drop-down list, go to browse for more, and databases, database engine. Since we already know this is our default instance. Yes, we have QA and prod. These are not running, only the dev is running. Okay, this is another way that you need to type the computer name and the instance name. And this is the username and the computer name and the default user. So the best practice is not connect with more than one instance at a time, because there might be too many query windows running, and you're running comments, you're running syntaxes on top of multiple servers, but you're not sure on which server you're running. Suppose I'm here, I'm taking a new query window. Yes. So if I check the server name, like select at server name. Yes. So this will give me the server name. Or if I'm creating something or dropping something, yes, if I'm creating a database, create database, then database name, yes, DCA1. So let's execute it. Is it created? Yes, it's already created. Since we haven't selected, we ran all the scripts together. It didn't give us any message. So at this point, it says database DCA1 is already exists. If we refresh, we'll see the database list here, DCA1. Okay. We have always two ways to do any activity on top of our SQL Server. We always have multiple ways to do something. There is not only one way of managing your databases. So we can right click on the databases. Yes, the GUI way. New database. Okay, we need to provide a unique database name. Every time we are creating a database, we must provide a name like Cafe1. Yes, Cafe1. Okay, then we must provide the size for the database. The best practice is to provide the size. So before changing any size here, we need to know why it's bringing the 8 MB every time. Yes, why it's always recommending like 8 MB the initial size, because the model database. What is model database? Model database. It's a system database. So let's comment model database. So what's model database? It's a system. While you see SYS, it says it means system. It's a system database that stores the database configuration. Yes. So the database configurations, it means every time you change any configuration of the model database, later on, while you create any database, they will take the configuration of the model database. Yes. So let's see. Okay. Let's go to model database properties, change some configurations. So file. Yes. So the size of model database is 8. Let's change it, the data for the data to 100 and for the log to 50. Yes. So what is the best practice? The best practice is always the data file must be twice the size of the log file. Twice bigger. So if the log file is 50 MB, the data file must be 100, double the size of the log file. Okay, we should have one log file, multiple data file. This is the best practice. Okay, let's change this setting. And okay, so we just changed it, the model database properties, the size of the model database from properties, from files, we just change it. Yes, so it's applied on the model database. Now let's create a new database. Go to database, new database. You see, every time you create a new database, they will be automatically taking all the configuration from the model database. By default, the owner is default. Yes, it means it's always the one who is creating the database. Let's create this one. My test one. Okay. You see, it took a little bit time. Did you see? It took a little bit time because it's generating, it's just the space of the disk. It's creating the disk space for this database. Then after all this process behind the scene, this will dump a database name for us here. So if you want to see the database properties, how big is the database? Yes, you can right click on the database, go to properties. Yes, this will give you all the information in general. So database properties, my test one, last database backup, none. Never this database had been backed up. Yes, it was not backed up so far. Last database log backup, no. There's no log backup, no full backup. So the database name, the status, owner, yes. Date created, you see. Size of the database 150. Why? Because 100 is for the data file, 50 is for the log file. The whole size of this database is 150 MB. Space available 97. Number of users 4. Memory allocated nothing. Okay. If you go to file group, you will see it has 2 files, one data file, one log file. If you want to increase the number of files, you can add from here. Add.
Number of users or
number of users. If you have any question on these points, there's simple ways we can get help from here, or just press F1. That will take us there. Okay, at this point, only 4 users are using this database at this point. number of users, but it doesn't mean like the number of database users. You see here, 4.
Mhm.
While you click on each tab, you see a space available for the database. While you click on each one, this will give some description. The number of database users is 4. It means at this point, 4 users are connected with this.
But this database.
Yes. 4 users are connected. System users, while you create anything, while you do have any databases running here, some system users, which is not showing us up here, but they are connected with the database to give the database much performance or to enable the database to be available. Some processes, let me explain it this way. Some processes are running behind the scene to make this database available for
The
us.
user not existing.
Not,
physically.
yeah, they're system users.
Oh.
Okay. So file, we will see 2 files for a database: data file, log file. Yes. The best practice is always to have how many files?
2 files.
No,
One is the master database file. It can be multiple. One is the log file. That's effectively.
we mentioned like in last session, like each database must have at least 2 files. If one file is missing, that database is no longer accessible. Yes. So at least each database has 2 files. You can create more than 2 files here. You see, you can create data file or log file, data file or log file. You see, you can change the file type here, but the best practices have only one log file and multiple data file, not multiple log file. Yes, we can have this 1. This is another file. Yes, this 2, this 3. So each file, each database has one data file, one log file by default. Yes. So database has logical name and physical name. Let me drop these, remove them. So each database has the logical name and the physical name. This is the physical name of the database. So they should match every time. Then database has file group and size and auto growth. We will discuss about file group, size, and auto grow and max size. Okay, I think this was a recap. We need to stop the recording and take it from there. Okay, let me stop the recording. Join back. Make sure this recording is saved.